Dipply Pipply is out. I need to get used to that. But anyway, Dipply Pipply is out. The cab is in. Delicious.
Delicious, disgusting. So this is what the little plebs and non-Edina like to drink. It doesn't taste anything like caviar and expensive yachts.
Yeah. Box wine is just fine.
That should be a shirt. What are you? What are you drinking tonight, Mike?
Well, I forgot the brand, but it's a Cabernet Sauvignon.
I forgot the brand, but I didn't know you spoke French. That's your accent is beautiful.
J'ai 2 ans à l'école. Lycée!
Gesundheit.
I always do that. I keep wanting to say lycée, but I keep saying l'école.
You know what Haley's going to be watching because she was telling me what she wants to do with French and what she's pursuing right now. Earlier today when we had lunch, she's going to be like, "Oh my God, it's French, yes!" And she sounds exactly like that. For those of you who don't know, that's a faithful.
No, she doesn't. I've heard her talk for all of 2 seconds, but that is not how she sounds.
Faithful reproduction of Haley's vocal.
Oh dear God.
Vocal cords. I myself am drinking, which by the way, this brand is not the sponsor of this video, Castle Napo. Single malt Irish whiskey, 14 years old.
Whiskey?
Whiskey, I barely even know him. Well, you will after this cup.
All right, we're having too much fun with this already. And welcome one and all on YouTube and in podcast land. You are listening to the Tangent Kings. Roll it. Welcome once again to the Tangent Kings podcast. I am, of course, your humble servant, humble and clueless servant, G. Michael Francis. And I'm here with my partner in crime, the ever so wise Mr. JJ Benks. How are you doing today, sir?
I am well, Mike. And fortunately this evening I've got a couple clues to share, so we'll be good. We'll even each other out.
Hey, man.
He doesn't know what to say. He's like, all right.
Okay. The ever wise Mr. Benks.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah?
Are you being sarcastic?
Yes, it wrinkles at just the right time.
Attempted bit. I'd say it's a 50-50 chance that landed.
You could still read it. I mean, our audio listeners are all going, what the frick are they talking about?
And then Sam's just watching. He's like, what the F?
Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. If that becomes a meme, and it probably will not.
If that becomes a meme and then we make the meme and people share it anyways, I'm okay with this.
We're still looking to make a meme reaction video, I promise.
We should one of these days. So for topics this evening, Mike, we're going to talk a little bit about some shenanigans that just happened a few hours ago in Minneapolis.
Of which I am totally clueless because I literally just put my kids to bed an hour ago.
Yeah. Good old Mike lives in the good old not Minnesota. So that's always pretty nice.
Thank God.
Thank God for me. Yes, God, thank you for you. He just wakes up in the morning and he's just like, thank God for me. And he's like, yes, that's very true. So needless to say, so for those of you who didn't hear, I'm sure that by the time you're probably listening to this, you're probably heard from a couple news sources that there is let me put the situation to you this way. So in Minneapolis, in North Minneapolis, which is the most crime intensive part in Minneapolis in general, but arguably in Minnesota, it's the neighborhood that's deteriorated the most. You've got the most, You just drive through it and you realize
I'm
that
sorry, I blanked out for a second. Which neighborhood were you talking about?
North Minneapolis, when you're
Oh,
driving
yeah.
through when you're driving through that part of the city, and since South Side Minneapolis is pretty bad too, but North Minneapolis has a reputation
Mm-hmm.
of quite a bit of violence.
I know
And
my grandparents used to live in North Minneapolis.
yeah, it used to be more decent back in the day, but
Yeah,
many
I
years
mean,
ago.
back when I was what, 7, 8 by the time they moved.
Yeah, give you an example. When we were when I was a kid, my dad and I, because we both really like trains, he would have a day off work, and we would hop in his old 90s Corolla, sky blue paint, and we'd hop in there, and then we'd drive out to the train tracks in North Minneapolis and just watch trains go by.
You had one too?
Fast forward a few years later, and you drive by that same part, and it's all heavily wired up with barbed wire, like you can't even directly access the tracks. Just for a comparison's sake, and the neighborhood's transformed a lot. But my point in just mentioning that,
and I actually, sorry to interrupt, but I actually remember finding my grandparents' old house on Google Maps not too long ago, and it was dilapidated. It was boarded up. It just looked nasty.
Oh, that's always not fun because you have those memories there. But the reason why I mentioned North Minneapolis is because this is where the what leftists are calling right now the George Floyd autonomous zone. What it really is that, and Tim Pool pointed this out in a couple episodes he did today, it's what's called the no-go zone. And the difference between
North Minneapolis has been one big no-go zone for the past 5 years or so.
It does kind of depend a little bit where you go, but it's not a neighborhood you'd want to go to. Now it's definitely a neighborhood where it's actually dangerous if you go into. What Tim Pool had pointed out, and by the way, I'm mentioning this. Tim Pool is a reporter on YouTube. He is a self-defined anarcho-communist. He is not by any means a conservative host, journalist.
Anarcho-communist?
Yeah.
How the flip do you pull that off?
Self-described anarcho-communist.
Well, back in my day, we just called it drunk.
Amen. Back in my day, it was just called being an idiot. But,
exactly.
But jokes aside, I didn't promise all of his beliefs were coherent, but he's a pretty good in terms of philosophical coherence. But he does do some pretty good reporting, and he covers some pretty good stuff. So he mentioned that, for example, that a no-go zone means that it means that there's more of a military connotation to it. You would see it in certain parts of cities, for example, during periods of high social unrest or war. In Europe, it's where a lot of minorities, for example, specifically a lot of immigrants from Somalia and North Africa, collectively have gone, that are so violent, and there's so much unrest in there that both police authorities and paramedics, for example, aren't able to go in there without being violently attacked. There are places where it's extremely dangerous to go into, and that's what this George Floyd autonomous zone is. This George Floyd Square, they call it, but it's really just is like I said, that no-go zone. Also, coincidentally, for those of you who know a little bit more about Minneapolis geography, North Minneapolis is it's directly adjacent to Brooklyn Center, which is where I believe Dante Wright was met his end. So in Minneapolis right now specifically, this is the anniversary of the time 1 year ago, back in 2020, when George Floyd had met his end.
God rest his soul.
And so the papers are covering it a lot. There's a lot happening in the no-go zone in North Minneapolis. I've driven through that part of the neighborhood before. It was a part I didn't want to pick up people when I was an Uber driver. Not that I hated the people there. It wasn't a prejudice thing. It's just that you don't know who's getting in your car, and you don't know if they're an okay person that just happens to live in a bad neighborhood, or they're crazy and might rob you. You honestly don't. You honestly have no idea. There's a higher risk in higher crime neighborhoods. So needless to say, what had happened was that there was a journalist, and there's a Jack Posobiec covered this on his Twitter. He's a analyst and a journalist himself. He posted this, and
don't forget to share the sound this time.
Yeah, let me screen share, and then why don't you
screen share?
Screen share.
Screen share, you'll share.
It's from Monsters Inc. Why don't you get me the screen share real quick, Mike? You give me the permission for that, and then
Yeah, I am so sorry. I keep forgetting to do that.
Oh, that's okay.
There we go. Now, by the power vested in me, you have now power to screen share. Oh my God, I'm turning into President Biden.
No, you sound already more coherent, so that's an instant improvement. Okay, and then I am sharing. I believe should be everything. So, tell me if you can hear this. I'm going to play this little clip here. There's a couple pieces on his Twitter. Fox News apparently covered. No, that's something else they covered. Let's see, 5 hours ago. I think that was about the time. Let's see. I'm trying to find it on his Twitter. I'll just use this article here that covers the State Department. Never mind. I'm just going to use the link we have in our chat. Basically, what had happened was that, specifically what had happened this 2 hours ago was that a couple of reporters were in the no-go zone there covering about Minneapolis police reform, and basically that the traditional policing is going to end in Minneapolis as we know it. And as a result of that, they were discussing that on the anniversary of George Floyd, and then immediately gunshots erupted in that area. Let me pull up the chat real quick. Let's see, where do I have? I'm gonna hit stop share real quick, and then we're gonna hit here, and then we're gonna share it again. Appreciate your patience.
And don't forget the share sound.
Okay, and optimize for a video clip. We're gonna do. Okay, so I'm just gonna play this real quick here. I had this open, and there it is. Okay, here it is. So about to play it. Philip Crowther. I believe that's the journalist's name. He's an international affiliate reporter for AP. Mm-hmm. He's a White House correspondent, and he's from Luxembourg. That's where the piece is. So Philip Crowther's covering this, and this is where he's.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots. Excuse us. It sounds like gunshots. I'll let you know what this is. These seem to be gunshots.
Yeah, so what we're seeing for our audio listeners is that you've got all this camera equipment set up that's taking video footage of the memorial. And then there's gunfire being traded, and then there's a GMC black SUV speeding away.
Probably just a bystander just getting away from the firing.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from the video footage what's going on exactly.
Because I know as soon as I hear shots popping off, I am flooring it.
Right.
This bill of comprehensive police reform.
So I'm going to pause that there. Yeah, and then it just loops. So it's ironic
and horrifying.
Oh, absolutely. If you live in Brooklyn Park or Brooklyn Center, where I used to live, specifically Brooklyn Park, but it's right on the border of Brooklyn Center, like less than 2 minutes away. This kind of stuff just doesn't faze you. It's like, oh, gunshot, let's just take cover and get down, or let's just avoid that. You'd hear gunshots a lot, but that's actually being in a situation where you're directly could get caught in a crossfire because you don't know where it is. Philip Crowther just on this Twitter feed just covers the rest of this. That's all the information there. But yeah, it's really interesting, Mike. What do you? I know we just kind of talked about that before the show, but what are your thoughts?
Like I said, it's pretty scary. You know, that's all I really have to say about it. It's, I mean, you did point out the certain irony of the reporter just literally talking about police reform and suddenly shots go off. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's scary to the fact that, you know, for what I understand, this comprehensive police reform people are calling for, these activists, they're calling for a total abolishment of the police department. Mm-hmm. And shots are going off. And you think that's going to go down just because uniformed police officers no longer exist? If anything, it's going to go up and spread.
Do you find it interesting? I guess my question that, and I don't know if these activists are thinking about this, but people that support this stuff is like, my question to them would be, who? I mean, number one, who's going to respond to the 9/11 calls?
A social worker.
Yeah. Um, but I guess who are they expecting to respond to crime? Do they expect crime just not to exist? Maybe they honestly feel like crime is going to stop existing because police in some capacity are causing it. That's a very Marxist way of thinking about it. It's the
Exactly, because
bourgeoisie.
it's not about individuals. It's about your class,
Yeah,
your shtick, your shtick, really.
you shtick. Yeah,
Yeah, that's something totally unrelated, but it just popped into my head. But
yeah.
you see my point, which is actually was your point, going into this. Oh crap! I just clicked off. There we go. And yep, there goes that train of thought. But
It's okay, but I'll bring it back here for you. So what you're saying is that what we're discussing, obviously,
yeah,
is that
and we've discussed about this, on and off for at least the past 10 weeks.
yeah, it's kind of this ongoing discussion, which I think is interesting. Or put it this way too. Um, I think maybe a lot of these activists feel that, and this is what extremists often do, is I'm going to find my target, or I'm going to, all the evil in the world belongs to this group. And if you just punish that group or attack that group or destroy that group, then all the evil will disappear. Well, the problem is that this does, and that's a very Marxian way of thinking about it too. It's like just make the bourgeoisie pay and then all the evil goes away.
Exactly. And, I remember during the whole Makia Bryant thing, where you had the celebrity, I think it was a celebrity, who said something to the effect of, knife fights are actually a normal way for teenagers to resolve their differences. Listen, if you live in a culture where it is normal for teenagers, young adults, whoever, to resolve their differences with gunfire and or knife fights, your culture freaking sucks.
Well,
as compared to what? As compared to that.
compared to that. Well, here, because it was the most powerful non-violent revolution in history, what happened?
Exactly.
Well, put it this way too. If you kind of read between the lines a little bit and think about what they're saying, it's like she's saying, because what were people saying about that? About the Bryant case. It's normal for them to resolve solve problems with knife fights, and I stop and you think, which culture specifically are you saying that? It almost sounds like what you're saying, in an attempt to defend this behavior, that you're saying in black culture.
It's not about defending behavior. It's about attacking the other class.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. But my point with this, if you follow the sentiment, is what they're effectively saying is that it almost sounds like what they're saying is this subversively racist thing that, yes, it's normal for black people or black kids to stab each other and solve problems with knife fights and scream at each other. And if you look at the whole thing, what they're trying to say is it's all normal. And I'm just like, I don't want to put black people in a group like that. And I'm not going to say, yeah, but it's almost like you're saying that black culture is more violent and more criminal. What's the implication is almost what you're saying at that point, which I'm like, that's a really interesting position to take. Yeah, you have to shake your head at it. Yeah.
I don't know if it's the freaking Cabernet or. Yeah, it's just I've said all I can on the subject. That if you attach a color to a culture, then newsflash, and I'm not applying this to you, Benks.
Okay.
If you apply a color to a culture, then you're the freaking racist.
Yeah. Well, I was writing a little bit about this today, and Stefan Molyneux pointed this out, and I really, really just loved his thoughts on this too. And he said this in a few different videos too. But he pointed out that the left, certainly to be more specific, Marxism is projection. It all really is projection. I mean, you kind of look at Marxist countries, and this isn't commonly well known, but Marxism often, if not in every single instance, creates the system in which it's telling people it's liberating people from. They find a target and they characterize and they project all of their own evil or their own beliefs or their own behaviors onto someone They do that and they attack it, and they'll say, no, we're going to bring out a better system. We're going to liberate you from it. Well, and not only do they create the system that they were telling people that they were trying to liberate them from, they make it worse.
All this evil is due to Goldstein.
Yeah. Or
yes, that was a 1984 reference.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was going to say Animal Farm, for example, too.
Or Trotsky.
Yeah. And Trotsky was a real piece of work in his own right, too.
That is true. And, I'm not defending Trotsky in any way, shape, or form.
You're not. But what I wrote was just, it's projection to begin with, but it's also this deliberate ignorance to reality. And it's followed by this justification to conduct evil and violence against its enemies, the enemies of Marxism. It projects its own actions, its own evils onto its enemies. What it criticizes, it creates. What it decides to burn down, it in fact actually builds up. What it promises to free people from, it actually enslaves people too. It creates and perpetuates the systems of exploitation, imperialism, exploitation of the working class and the poor, I might add. So it perpetuates systemic racism. It perpetuates violence, state-funded terrorism, mass imprisonment, and genocide against those it desires. And it absolutely perpetuates a classist system. It's 2% of people, for people that talk about Occupy Wall Street, it creates a system where the party members have all the power and wealth, and they have all the resources of society, and then everyone else is dirt poor and they can't afford to live very well. But one of the things I was having a conversation with a friend on the phone a little bit about this before the show today, and I didn't say this to her, but I thought of this, and I thought, well, the people that support these kinds of systems, there's a level of, it's not just a complete blithering ignorance that they're voting in people that create these policies, but there's this complete, like this I would go venture out and say this is a level of appalling ignorance that it's out. For lack of a better term, it's just outright evil, where it's like you're so blind to something so obvious in history just because it doesn't support your ideology. It boggles the mind. I don't know if I've got a word to just adequately describe it, but I notice with people that kind of support these policies, or certainly support the activism happening in Minneapolis right now, with regard to police reform, I think that there's a lot of people that don't understand how the causes they support and the people they vote into office and the people they choose to associate themselves with, I don't know if they understand how their own personal decisions affect the larger society. Certainly in the case of voting. The friend I talked to in particular, she was telling me that she was driving her vehicle over to get her permit to purchase, or her permit to carry. She was getting a concealed and carry class. Mm-hmm. And she on her car, she had a Biden-Harris sticker. Now she got into a confrontation with someone, which I won't discuss, but I was just purely in terms of just thinking. I didn't say this to her, but what I was thinking was that, it's a little ironic. You're voting in for two people, really one person, Kamala Harris. You're voting for somebody that is anti-Second Amendment, someone that is going to increase gun control and has done that as much as humanly possible, and has tried to pass bills. They've pushed for bills. Their party has voted for bills that would effectively nullify having any kind of gun ownership, or make it so impossible that no one except the ultra rich can afford. You're voting for someone like that and is contributing to undermining the Second Amendment, it's undermining the very liberty and ability you have.
And on top of all that, the nervous laugh from Amadeus.
Right. Well, it's like living in clown world.
I've never seen Clown World, but
no, it's not a movie. It's a meme. It's like
me.
Well, this is the politics of Clown World. So not that I was saying what she was doing was Clown World, but what I'm saying is like it's so diametrically opposed, and that she was living with just two very different beliefs at the same time. But I generally think that Democratic voters and supporters in general just don't understand how their ideas not only affect and play out in larger society. It's like they live in this fantasy world where it's totally devoid of reality. Here's what I wrote. I said, It's just they have no grasp on. It's like a fantasy almost. It's like they live in a fantasy land devoid of truth, which is frankly where like a lot of what their ideas are in a lot of ways. Um, it's their and it's this. It's they think that ideas can live in a vacuum that have no impact or bearing on reality, which I would contend, I would suspect, is their own thinking, but they think ideas in general don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
That they live in this box. It's or to maybe even use an example from a D&D, it's like they've got moderate to high scores in intelligence, but extremely low scores in wisdom. Or there's a sense I mentioned before. The state effectively completely undermined his business and destroyed his business with regards to all the COVID restrictions. And he's one of the most religious people in supporting. I get emails from him talking about, he's literally quoting, it's almost like he's copying, pasting stuff from CNN, and then that's his stance on something. And it's like, you're not thinking for yourself, unfortunately. It's almost like a mind control.
Mm-hmm. Well, you reap what you sow, but that's my immediate reaction.
You noticed in your experience when you were at college and school, or your interaction with just people that were more left, not all leftists, but a lot of leftists, did you kind of notice this something similar in the sense that there was this disconnect from who they decided to vote for and support, to not a little bit different, like they think they can just vote for whoever they want and it doesn't affect their lives, kind of thing. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I've seen it myself, and yeah, I won't say it's to the point where some people are going, okay, maybe I shouldn't have voted for this guy, which in reality they voted for that girl.
Mm-hmm.
But I still see some people who are, they see something happening, the economy's plummeting. That's a good thing. The inflation's going up. That's a good thing.
Splicing that clip.
But yeah, I see it all the time.
Yeah.
It's like when it comes to you, not YouTube, but yeah, we'll get to that kind of worms in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But on Facebook, I see it all the time, and I just tend not to engage in politics on Facebook.
Yeah.
Because it's pointless. You got to see people so entrenched in this fantasy land.
Yeah.
That it's like, I'm not even going to bother at this point.
Did I ever tell you the story? I don't know if I mentioned before. I think I might have once or twice. Did I ever tell you what Potemkin villages were in the Soviet Union?
Yeah, I know what Potemkin villages are, but I think that was actually pre-Soviet.
Yeah, they were. You are correct. They were pre-Soviet. The Maoists in China did the same thing on the Maoist private train. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, what it meant was that when they were dealing with a tyrant in Russia, for example, and then the Soviets did do this too.
Yeah, and I think specifically Potemkin villages came up under Alexander III. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, we should. I'll look into that specifically. But the reason why I mentioned it because it was mentioned in Dr. Lee's biography of Mao.
No, it was Catherine the Great.
Was it Catherine the Great actually?
Yeah, it was.
So here's what. So the term originated. So I'll put it this way. So the point I'm making with it was Dr. Lee mentioned it in his book. And the thing that he mentioned was that when Mao had a private train, like the most luxurious train is the equivalent of Air Force One back in the 60s, just on a train, and Mao had everything he wanted. He had all of his food. He had all of his supplies. He had his, all of his supplies. He had his, what do I say? His, concubines, women he's met, underage women he's met at parties, even though his wife was on there, everything he wanted on there. And he just go around the country, just traveling literally on a whim. And what he did is that he wanted to see the successes of how great his ideology was. So he either ordered people to create this cardboard box utopia, like, oh, look at all the villages popping, all the factories popping up. Like people would just like overnight just prop this stuff up so it looked like, wow, look at all the success. A more modern example might be what you see in the film The Interview, when they're driving through North Korea, and they're like, "Wow,
It's fake.
that's not something new. Communists have been
Yeah,
doing
and
that for a
that's
long
not too
time.
far from the truth.
Yeah. So Mao would do that, just for example, and they would do that. The term Potemkin villages came from Russia. So, but I just mentioned that.
Yeah, because I actually just remembered off, just in a flip second,
Mhm.
because Catherine the Great would actually take sledge rides through the country, and they would set up mock villages along the route.
Yep, that's exactly right. And so we're talking about that because in what we're talking about is like it's almost as if and some more of these radical leftists too, it's like they want that. They want to be patted on the back. They just vote for someone who's like, oh my gosh, you said all the things that check off my ideology. I don't care if you're going to increase taxes. I don't care if you're going to make my life harder. I don't care if you're going to create suffering for people that are trying to make ends meet or destroy small businesses. I don't care about any of the repercussions or the consequences of that. What I care is that you checked off my ideology and you're going to give me all these comforting lies. Like, speak those sweet nothings into my ear. Tell me all the things I want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. It's this, they want to be lied to, and they don't care if it corresponds with reality. And I think that that's, in terms of action, that's kind of where the Democratic Party and a lot of its voters have gone over the last several years. It's been that way for a while, but it seems really,
it's sad,
really obvious.
It's tragic, but
yeah, it seems
it
that way
is
now.
what it is. Although I did know it. Funny story. I do know a Democrat who did vote for Trump at least the first
Wow.
time.
Wow.
Which actually surprised the hell out of me.
Well, maybe they have some principles then.
Mm-hmm. No, so not all
voting with the
Democrats are
party.
bad, my friend.
Yeah. It seems, and it's unfortunate. It seems like the old classical liberal it seems like they've died out so much.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it could also be traced back to the this originally American phenomenon. I want it and I want it now. No, bring it to me faster. Oh, we're gonna bring it to you faster. No, we're gonna take this and bring it to you faster. We got the fast food, the fast hamburgers, the fast video games, and all this. Everything's so fast, you don't have time to think.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just a hypothesis I came up with on the fly.
Yeah, and it's funny how it's almost like you think of the example from Christ said that example in the New Testament where he talked about the sower and the seed, and he talked about one of them is a seed springing up so fast but they had no roots. That's almost what, in some ways, it almost kind of feels like American society is like that in some ways. Certainly now, it's that its roots. I mean, its roots have been challenged for sure, but some things have so rapidly changed that it's unsustainable, or that it's so volatile right now that it's not. It's sprung up so fast. We've gotten all these things so fast, and we expect it that way now.
Yeah, it'll just go wherever the wind carries it.
Yeah. And I think, that's right. Yeah, it goes wherever the wind carries it. And that's honestly kind of the result of the last few generations we've had. They go with the wind sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That is what it is. Which kind of, you see everybody getting carried with the winds of the time. Unfortunately, same thing with the military, which really, really ticked me off.
Isn't the military taking some kind of political stance right now?
Apparently. And the military, at least when I was in, you were supposed to leave politics on the yellow footprints. Basically, most of you know I went into the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows the famous or infamous, depending on your point of view, yellow footprints. That's where you're supposed to leave your politics. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, and especially now with the U.S. Army coming out with this new recruitment ad, and honestly, I don't know what the hell they were thinking.
I saw this got a lot of, this kind of went viral, but...
Yeah, it went viral, and all I've seen was people just picking apart with it, especially with when comparing it to Russian ads and Chinese ads, recruitment ads. Granted, in either of those countries, I don't really think you have a choice.
Still in the forced conscription model, yeah.
But yeah, I'm not gonna play the ad. I might splice it in.
Yeah, you can look it up. It's just search U.S. Army woke.
Yeah, U.S. Army calling Emma.
Yeah.
Specifically, I was raised with by two moms in California, and I'd like to think I was fighting for freedom all my life. And you sound like the stereotypical cartoon of the remade Gadsden flag with the little pet snake saying, "Please no steppy." And right now, every secessionist is looking at that ad going, "Oh boy, this is going to be easier than I thought."
Do you never notice with the left that there's this proclivity to almost like it does satire of itself and mean it totally seriously and not even. It's like
it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's like they satirize themselves unironically better than anything that honestly, it's like it's almost like at a point where it's almost like you're self-aware and you're not. It's almost like you're stupid as bleep, but you're not. And I'm not saying leftists are, but just like the ideology and those that practice.
Yeah, the ideology. But a couple of things hit me. One, I actually looked at some of the ads from like Russia and China, and there was that, but also Poland. And you get this sense of strength. It's like, yeah, which is what the military should be.
Yeah.
But also, surfing YouTube, I get ads, recruitment ads all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, these are ads that also exude strength and we fight to win and we have a part in it. From the Air Force. The Army just got outshined by the freaking Air Force. How does that happen?
That's a special kind of stupid right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Air Force is on the ball then.
Yeah. Thankfully, I haven't seen one from the Marines yet.
I did see, it's funny. I did see a Marine ad so let me ask you this, dude. Do you remember many years ago when Halo 3 came out, they had this diorama thing where it's this old it's fictional veterans from the Halo War, in the third game, the Human Covenant War, that they had little dioramas where it was like little figurines shooting their rifles and throwing frags, and it was all like in stop motion. Do you remember that one at all?
No.
Okay, I'll send you the link. Maybe we can splice it in. But the Marines had a very similar one that was even more epic, where it was like this living diorama, almost like you're watching this model, and it's like goes from like Civil War to trench fighters to like all through the whole history of the Marine Corps, and it's super interesting stuff. The way they did their ad.
Mm-hmm. Well, look up Sabaton Devil Dogs. That's a recruitment ad in and of itself, especially if you use the music video. But I love Sabaton.
Doesn't everybody like Sabaton?
They should, because they make. I normally don't like rock, but I love that music. Granted, I'm not exactly sure exactly what genre. I don't care. I like it.
Yeah. Kill, fight, die. That's what a soldier should do. Top of their game, earning their name. They were the Devil Dogs. That's some of the lyrics from that that song there.
In a war machine, they're the USA Marines. Okay, that's British for one thing.
Well, yeah. The Brits haven't been made fun of sufficiently enough.
Mm-hmm. Although, incidentally, fun factoid. If you see a Royal Navy sailor saluting like this with the palm facing forward, rest assured that guy is an imposter.
Really? Because they're supposed to salute like this?
Yeah, they're supposed to salute palm down.
Oh, palm down. That's interesting.
Yeah, the Royal Navy salutes palm down.
That's really interesting.
Because I think it was, Queen Victoria, when she was freshly coronated, was making a tour of the docks, and one of the sailors saluted like this, and the grime on his hand disgusted her so much that she got him to hide it.
Wow.
That's one of the stories. But
It's kind of funny how little things like that make history.
Mm-hmm.
It's super interesting. But we should I think next week we'll talk a little. Should we talk a little bit more about religion next week, Mike?
I think so. I think we
I
had an
love
idea
religion.
lined up. So,
It's funny. Whoever thought talking about religion wasn't fun? Yeah.
only if you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a guest on next week. I think, right?
Maybe
We'll
if I
see.
can get Zoom Pro.
Maybe I should buy. Hey, we should be at bought Zoom Pro. I'll buy Zoom Pro because I love my audience and I am going to make sure we give you the best show we can. So I got you.
There we go. And we are actually starting to run a little bit low on time, but there is one more thing I wanted to talk about.
Sure, yeah.
Well, I am not going to dress this up. We got hit by the YouTube censors.
Oh, this is fun. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, within I think it was 3 hours of posting it, our special on the COVID vaccines got pulled down.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to go into the subject matter, just in case this video decides to get taken down.
Mm-hmm.
But suffice it to say that we both got a little miffed.
Needless to say, that's an understatement.
Yeah, that is I could hear this guy's rage through the phone, and we were texting. I could feel his wrath seething to my fingertips, which is why he and I are now proud to announce that we are starting YouTube Accountability Month. All right. So,
what is YouTube Accountability Month, Mike?
Well, it is simple. You, our humble viewers, we are asking
for help
of you to help us hunt down a video on YouTube that clearly violates the standards, but they say does not. Because I've been hearing reports about this all the flippin' time. Well, YouTube, you're going to have standards. We're going to make sure you're enforcing them 100% across the board, despite who's posting it or whatnot.
Because YouTube can't pretend to have standards and then just violate those selectively.
Exactly.
It doesn't have standards.
Because it's infuriating.
Yeah.
And that's just putting it the least. And I'm just going to say it's straight up immoral.
Well, it absolutely is. It's hypocritical. But the thing I'll point out is that we were talking about vaccines a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And, we should probably bleep out the word vaccine, by the way, so we don't get dinged. So the vax.
Oh, my God, he's gone.
Or bleep it out or something like that, or space it out. But they said what we're talking about was misinformation. Maybe it's because we said the V word, or we didn't support it. I don't know how
they didn't give me any reason.
No,
all they gave me was, it violated their standards. And then this is your toot. Because, on YouTube's warning thing, they have a guy blowing a whistle, then 3 flags.
Yeah. So you get your basically
this is your non-warning warning.
Yeah. And then the rest is because when you drove for Uber, they would give you the same thing. It's like, this thing happened and someone notified us. You're not in trouble, but you might be later.
Well, we are definitely now on your radar. So it's like, you know what?
For a small channel
you want to have standards? Fine. You can have your standards to your heart's content. Just enforce them uniformly, please. And we're going to make sure you're doing that, because I've been hearing stories to the contrary. Yeah,
so what we'll be doing this next week is I'll keep an eye out for violations of their...
This whole month. This goes on. Oh, that reminds me. If you do find one, send it to us. If you flag it and it comes back, send us the email.
Yeah.
Of them say, we didn't find this in violation of our standards, and we will post it in our videos. Yeah. So and just to reiterate too, let's get them a copy. Let's get our viewers a copy of their terms of service and their community guidelines. And just that's anything 8 pages minimum. Yeah. Anything you see that they take a quick gander at, anything you see that looks like it might violate that. And we're asking our viewers to report it, you're saying? Yeah. Well, Yeah, flag it, and if it comes back saying we didn't find this in violation, send the link to either the link or the video to copy down this email address, tkpodcast2020@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Send the link there, or if you happen to know one of us, send it either to him or to me, or just post it in the comment section. Just post the link in the comment section.
Right.
Then I'll send you the email. I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah. We'll be doing our own due diligence, obviously, as well. But over this next month, it sounds like we're definitely going to be working in examples of them not following their own rules. It's a classic case of rules for thee, but not for me.
Exactly. So, on that note, boys and gals, you know what to do. And also, just off the top of my head, I'm not saying this is confirmed. I'm not saying that this is not going to happen. But be prepared if we have to make a total transition to Rumble.
Yeah. Just keep following us around. We'll keep giving links to our show on Spotify as long as we're on there. And then if we go over to Rumble instead of YouTube, we'll let you guys know.
Oh, I forgot to post last week's episode on the podcast platforms.
You'll remember. You'll get it. You can maybe put a reminder on your phone, but we'll take care of it. We'll get it posted. But anyway, I suppose this might be time for my book quote, Mr. Mike.
Yes, it is. Mr. Benks, your book quote, please.
Thank you. And this was actually shared by Zianon. So thanks, Zianon, on the Bleepmaster server. So this is from Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. And then she says this: let me give you a tip on a clue to men's characters. The man who damns money has obtained it dishonorably. The man who respects it has earned it. So men that say money is the worst thing ever and it's the horrible, 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 more than likely obtained it dishonorably. But those who respect its value and its place seem to have a lot of it.
Exactly. Yeah, the guys who are always toting out the money is the root of all evil. Either one, have an OnlyFans account, or two, some other means.
Sweet, sweet Anissa.
Oh, dear Lord.
Put that S in SS Sniper Wolf. Yuck.
I don't get that reference, and I don't think I want to go there.
Mike's gonna get off the show just to be like,
no.
Oh, that's who it is.
Oh, thanks. You are just too much at times. But we'd like to thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and share the ever-loving crap out of this video. If you do, you get a big old thumbs up from the big old... I forgot my own name for a second. The big old GM Francis. Good Lord.
Mike, you are sometimes too much sometimes.
Yes, I know. I'm trying to come up with this on the fly, and I'm trying to make it interesting.
That's my whole job, dude. Anyway, so yeah, share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with your acquaintances.
Coworkers.
Share it with your coworkers. Share it with your
dog.
Share
it with the guy you just met on the Amtrak.
Yeah. Share it with your neighbors. Hey, I don't know you, but you should watch the show. He'd be like, thank you. I will.
Yeah, you'd be charging into somebody's room in the middle of the night like Homer in that one episode of Simpsons. Bart, you want to see my new chainsaw hockey mask?
It's like, whoa, Bart, I didn't mean to alarm you, but a new episode of Tangent Kings has just posted. Ah!
Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. We love you guys, and we are the Tangent Kings. Pax et Bonum! Hey folks, if you like our podcast, be sure to check us out on Facebook, and also check us out on our podcast platforms, namely Anchor, Spotify, Google Cast, and others you can also find on Anchor. God bless.